everyone, welcome back to the channel. As most of you Floridian viewers already know, the weather outside the past couple weeks has been absolutely beautiful, which only makes time spent trackside even more enjoyable. The most recent of such outings was between me and my friend Dakota last Sunday, where we chased down a southbound ethanol train bound for Tampa, which is the topic of this video. But before we start, I want to give a huge thanks to one of my subscribers, Jason Scarretts, and his son Brendan. I really appreciated the kind email y'all sent about enjoying my videos, and so I hope you enjoy this one just as much. Anyway, on to the video, and on to the S-Line. Now, usually for chases like these, there's not much to say about the train. It originates in one of the many suburbs of Chicago and runs south to Tampa via Corbin, Kentucky, Manchester, Georgia, and finally Baldwin up in North Florida. However, this would not be a normal B631 out of Bensonville, but instead a B831, the 6 switching to the 8 in the symbol to denote its alternate routing. Profiled as a Ridgeway, Ohio to Tampa, Florida unit train, its first CSX crew would actually be out of Garrett, a small town in middle of nowhere, Indiana. I believe the train left Chicago as a normal B631, but would continue east and evidently switch symbols in Garrett, with its first crew taking it down to Ridgeway, Ohio, about 125 miles south by east. From there, the train would take its normal routing east towards Deschler, where trains bound for the southeast usually turn south. Instead, the B831 would continue east across the Diamonds, and using subdivisions I don't even know the names to, it would end up on the Atlantic Coastline, Maine, in Richmond, Virginia. Now, considering that Amtrak's Auto Train passes Richmond on its 16-hour trip between Lorton, Virginia and Sanford, one would think that the B831 would be in Florida in just a couple of days, which was the case until it hit Savannah, where the crew was relieved by nobody. For almost 2 days, the train sat motionless in the hostess city, until finally at 0100 on Sunday morning, February 11th, 2024, it was crewed up and on its way south. Now, for some reason, because of crew qualifications and whatnot, the Savannah crew would be relieved at Baldwin, where the final Tampa crew would get on board and start heading south. I'd leave the house to meet Dakota in Dade City as the train began rolling down the S-Line in mid-morning. All would appear to be going smoothly as the train made it through Ocala and approached Wildwood. However, when it got there, surprise, surprise, it was met by red signals that would stay red for the next 3 hours. Northbound train L729 found a way to occupy both main lines in Wildwood, ultimately stopping the 831 and another southbound behind him. It was now around 3 p.m., and with the train finally starting to move again, we'd move up to Lake Panasoffkee for our first shot, which would come earlier than expected. Well, if it wasn't obvious already what the craze was on this train, now you know. The leader, KCS 4167, would turn many heads of rail fans today in Florida with the fact that it was leading and its fantastic K5 LLA horn. This would be our focus for the next hour or so as we chase the train south down the old seaboard. Coming into Bushnell, we beat the train to the south end of town by a couple minutes as it rounded the curve a lot slower than we expected. The main reason I found for this train's alternate routing was because of the Fitzgerald Sub's curfew in effect for the next few weeks. The Fitz, as it's known by many, is the subdivision that connects Manchester and Waycross via Cordele, the same line that almost a year ago Dakota and I documented on a 4-day trip. To me, it really doesn't make sense still, considering that a plethora of other unit trains to Florida took the Fitz south in the same week, however. But what does it matter now? B831 is here with its advertised power and in great afternoon winter light.
That's right. You'll be meeting M452 either at Bushnell or probably on double track if I can help it. Understand. Yeah, we'll try to keep you double track then. Over.
831's slow speed would be because of that conversation you just heard between northbound 452 and CSX's JA dispatcher. 452 would be meeting 831 just 5 miles south of Bushnell at St. Catherine and the double track that stretches down to Ridge Manor. This would work out for us as not only did we get a bit of pacing footage, but leapfrogging the train was that easy, seen here again at the distant to St. Catherine ABS signal. Back on 301 we'd go, now in an attempt to beat the train to St. Catherine. Many in the area are familiar with St. Catherine as the jumble of houses and flashing yellow light along 301. But to railroaders, St. Catherine is known for its signals, which mark the north end of the 4.5-mile double track that starts at milepost S781.3. Being it the only section of double track on the Wildwood to Vitus portion of the S-Line, it's simply called the double track by local crews, which is why when it was mentioned by the JA dispatcher to 452, we knew that our B831 would be meeting something there.
Southbound main number 2. Clear. St. Catherine. B83105.
1536, and B831's head end is now clear of St. Catherine, but not our opposing train, which is that northbound M452, who has diverged onto track 1 for the meet. Because CSX labels their tracks left to right looking north, track 1 will always be the track on the left, in this case when looking towards Wildwood. Since the double track breaks out to the left, the straight and 60-mile-per-hour main line becomes track 2, and the side track is track 1, as to stick to the rule book and avoid confusion. In the end, it really doesn't matter, however, as long as each train has their own track, which in this case, we do, as M452 illuminates his headlights as soon as 831's lead motor is passed. This is common railroad procedure to protect crews looking at oncoming trains, as if you haven't noticed yet, locomotive headlights are deceivingly bright. With 831's last cars past the switch here, 452's red signals would soon upgrade to a red over flashing green, a limited clear indication. Limited speed over turnouts, switches, or crossovers, then proceed at maximum authorized speed, which in plain English means 45 miles per hour over the switch, and once you're past, full speed ahead. We'd heed the signal aspect and leave before 452 would even pass, as we had one more shot in mind at Dade City, and with 301's pesky afternoon traffic in full swing, any extra time we could gain on the train would help. Taking advantage of the freshly ripped out bushes and trees between the sidewalk and the tracks, we'd set up about a quarter mile from the familiar Dade City depot as 831 sped south. If not mentioned earlier, this long string of tank cars is loaded to the brim with ethanol bound for the port of Tampa on the coast of McKay Bay, just east of Ybor City in downtown. Now, although these trains aren't high priority and obviously not very clean, they're some of the most, if not the most valuable trains on the system, especially in today's economy. Considering that each individual tank car is holding around 30,000 gallons of ethanol, and that currently ethanol is priced at $2.16 here in the States per gallon, and that these trains are over 100 cars long, you're looking at a $6.5 million B831 today. Not only is the move expensive, but also dangerous, as I think we all know how flammable ethanol is. No matter the risks, however, these trains keep on running, and we'll keep on catching them. But for today, this is where our chase would end. I'd have to be home around sunset anyways, so Dakota would continue south to Plant City from here alone, as I'd pack up my things and start heading home. Well, not just yet. Located at Pioneer Museum Road, about a mile north of the depot, is where the house track breaks out of the main, which today would be where a little surprise would be staged. Because of the colder weather, and by extension more comfortable weather to be working in, CSX uses the winter months down here as their unofficial maintenance season, making scenes like these track machines sitting quietly on a house track a common sight. Waiting patiently for their next assignment here in Dade City would be a couple of ballast regulators, one painted in a camo 1776 inspired scheme, which honors those brave Americans who have given and are giving their lives for our country. I'm not really sure why these pieces of machinery were painted, as there is a handful of them, but I'm not one to complain, as I think the camo breaks the monotony of CSX's neon yellow maintenance of way paint scheme quite well. No matter what the paint looks like on the exterior, however, these machines all serve an important purpose on the railroad, these regulators specifically used to regulate ballast. With three main types of equipment, all used in conjunction when these things are operating, Regulators serve a plethora of purposes. Plow blades are used to move and shape the ballast, with ballast boxes used to pull scattered ballast towards the tracks and to contour the slopes on each side. Finally, all smoothed out with rotating brushes, which scrape sporadic ballast off the top of the wooden ties and out from within the rails, where wheel flanges will pass over. No such work would be getting done today, however, and with red signals in both directions, I'd call it here and drive home. I hope y'all enjoyed this video from the S-Line. Feel free to leave a like or ask a question in the comments below. I'm always open to video requests or feedback on these videos. It only helps to improve the channel and its quality. But until we meet again somewhere out there trackside, this is Christian from Multicolor Films. End of transmission.